The film takes place in 2010 Paris when a wave of crimes and drugs was ravaging the city's poorest neighborhoods. There were so many conflicts that the government decided to build walls around the most dangerous neighborhoods, protecting the rest of the city, but leaving the innocent, impoverished souls who lived inside to their fate. In District 13, one of the walled neighborhoods, we witness all kinds of misdeeds being committed. Weapons and drugs are the staple of daily life in this place where everything is allowed. Outside a residential building known as K2, a local gang member demands the presence of Leto, a street vigilante accused of stealing cocaine. Immediately, the building's guards point their weapons at him. They believe that if they let him in, it would only result in a massacre. Meanwhile, in his apartment, Leto contemplates the 20 kilos of cocaine he stole from the boss of Cada Dos, a local figure, to secure passage. Each Cada Dos feigns kindness toward the doorman, and just when they lower their guard, he breaks one man's neck and pushes another against a wall. With more gang members from K2 on his side, they break into the building in search of Leto. Sensing danger, Leto begins tearing open the cocaine bags and hurling their contents into a sink. Seconds later in the corridor, one of the guards is shot by a member of K2 from an elevator as its doors were barely opening. They rush in full force toward Leto, who is still destroying the drugs. K2 threatens a resident to force him to take him to Leto's residence, from which Leto emerges at that very moment, though he nearly ends up riddled with bullets. In his next move, he waits for the gang members to position themselves in front of his door so he can kick it open and escape down the corridor using parkour, for Leto is an expert in that discipline. When he reaches a balcony, he does not hesitate to leap to the one below, then swings with a rope to continue his descent from the building. One of the gang members makes the mistake of trying to catch him midair, and thus the chase continues on the rooftop, where Leto jumps from one building to another, while his pursuers break their bones trying to keep up with him. Leto then enters another building, where he throws a gang member down the stairs and continues running along other rooftops. Still having gang members nipping at his heels, Leto performs a gigantic jump to another rooftop, a feat none of his pursuers dared attempt. After that failure, Taha, with cold-blooded resolve, orders his subordinates until Gatos suggests kidnapping Leto's sister, the young Lola. In the K2 supermarket, Taha and his men interrupt Lola's shopping, dragging her into their car. Once in their hideout, Lola is brought before Taha, while the gang members hurl catcalls and grope her, though she continues to defend herself. Just when Taha is celebrating that he has Lola in his power, Leto drops into his office from the ceiling, reminiscent of Batman, and threatens him with a knife. In that tight situation, the mafioso is forced to release Lola. Although Leto uses Taha as a shield to escape his hideout, along the way the girl stops before the man who groped her, forcing him to chew on her underwear. After that, the brothers press on until they reach a sports car from which they begin their escape. While a hail of gunfire rains down on them, Lola takes the wheel, and despite the vehicle sustaining extensive damage, she manages to arrive unscathed at a police checkpoint. There, the brothers try to hand Taha over to justice using the cocaine outside as evidence. Police and gang members point their weapons to prevent a bloodbath. The police captain decides to lock up Leto and release Taha, who does not leave until Lola is handed over. Furious, Leto seizes a few seconds when the captain approaches his cell to escape. 6 months later, in a luxurious illegal casino in Paris, we meet a police officer who successfully infiltrated the gang of Carlos Montala, the casino's owner, after having also expelled Carlos's mercenaries. The police install a sort of cage on the roof to transfer the mafioso when they sense that their boss is no longer in his office. The mercenaries start shooting at the iron door, while also waiting their turn to exit via the crane. However, the enemies break in much earlier, forcing the officer to hide behind the door. A fight then erupts in which the officer displays his martial arts skills, exiting through the main door by jumping, shooting, and beating several mafiosos. When he is surrounded by a group of armed men, the apparent apprentice of Bruce Lee grabs one of them, shoots the others, and then kills him. He continues on, combining the power of firearms with that of punches, and finally finishes off the last man by hurling him onto a betting table. Thanks to that tremendous massacre, the operation is a success for the police, who dismantle the casino before permanently saying goodbye to Carlos. They also deliver one last gesture of affection by blowing up his prized car, as if that were to earn him a vacation after his heroic act. However, he is immediately contacted for a new mission in District 13. The objective is to recover an experimental bomb that Taha's men stole from an armored vehicle, mistakenly believing it was money. The idea behind transporting it through District 13 was to avoid triggering the city's alarms. But the plan goes awry, and Taha ends up accidentally activating the bomb. Now he has only 23 hours to recover the bomb before it explodes and destroys everything within an 8-kilometer radius. Since Damian had never been in this neighborhood before, what better option than a convict to guide him? However, as he also has to blend into the environment, he pretends to be another prisoner who is to be transferred along with Leto to another jail. The officer concocts a tale of revenge against Taha to earn Leto's trust. In doing so, he frees himself from his handcuffs with a lockpick and then ejects the drivers from the front cabin. Since those police officers were part of his ruse, he also harbored something personal against them. Despite all this, Leto quickly recognizes that he is dealing with an undercover officer when the woman driving stops him and forces him to breach the District 13 entry barriers. After parking smoothly, if you abandon him, you are left to your fate. He distrusts the police because of what they did to his sister. While trying to unlock his handcuffs, he also arouses the suspicion of the local gang members, sparking a fight with them. Unable to settle matters any other way, he has no choice but to seize the steering wheel and use it as a weapon to escape. He then threatens the leader of that gang, almost strangling him with the steering wheel, a weapon he has long underestimated. Taha receives the news that Leto has escaped from prison, and it's only a matter of time before he shows up to rescue his sister, whom Taha has chained like an animal. And indeed, his suspicions are confirmed. Leto has been watching him from a nearby building when suddenly he is struck by Damian, who hits him with a pipe for abandoning him. The officer explains that he is there for a good reason, detailing the bomb's danger, which convinces Leto, who has spent his life fighting against the injustices within District 13. Now he has the chance to save millions of people. Consequently, he makes a truce with the officer, and they devise a plan in which Leto will act as bait while infiltrating Taha's hideout like James Bond to deactivate the bomb and rescue Lola. The first thing Leto does is call Taha on the phone to inform him that a police officer wants to negotiate. He also gets angry at Taha's lack of discretion, but the strategy succeeds in piquing the mafioso's curiosity, prompting him to send his men to guide the duo to his hideout. Damian attempts to convince Taha by explaining that the bomb must be deactivated to prevent a greater disaster. However, the mafioso only understands the language of money, so the officer buys the bomb for 20 million euros, which, by the way, he does not have. But when they inspect the bomb, they discover it is set to be launched at the center of Paris, with poor Lola tied up beside it, desperately trying to escape. The government refuses to agree to such a high transaction, although they are unaware that their beloved capital is at risk. Naturally, as if out of sheer madness, they are not going to tell Taha that they won't pay him. Instead, they assure him that his money is on its way. Subsequently, Leto and Damian are forced to kneel like hostages while they await the fake transfer. At that moment, Leto suspects something is amiss with the bomb, for the government wants to recover it without paying, apparently intending to use it to obliterate District 13. Although the moralistic officer refuses to believe it, his primary concern becomes escaping before they find out that they lack the money. Therefore, they feign an emergency, claiming they need to see Taha immediately. Meanwhile, as the gang members have their weapons confiscated and begin a rapid escape, they enter a bathroom and use an underground passage to exit. As soon as Taha learns of this, he unleashes his fury by shooting one of his men in order to worsen his situation. All his bank accounts had been emptied by the police when they obtained his number to conduct the supposed transfer. Since in District 13, loyalty is bought with money, and Taha no longer had any, he annihilates them on the spot, naming K2 as his new leader. Meanwhile, Lola manages to reach a gasoline drum and pours its contents beneath the bomb. Her intention remains a mystery, but it appears extremely dangerous. We return to the heroes who barely emerge from a sewer while being chased by cars sent by Catados. With a spectacular maneuver, they cause their enemies to crash, but many still remain, so they decide to split up. For his part, Leto evades a car by climbing a wall and relies on his speed to escape, clearly having learned a thing or two from his companion. After a series of rooftop chases, he jumps to lose the gang members. Not far away, he also reaches a plaza where he steals a car under the pretense of being a police officer. Naturally, the heroes regroup in the abandoned building where the bomb is located, only to be ambushed by Shatters and his men. However, the gang leader lets them go in order to save himself, since they are the only ones capable of deactivating the bomb, while Lola attempts to light a match to start a fire with the gasoline, as if trying to escape. The protagonists are about to reach her, but then they encounter Yeti, a gigantic man and Taja's last loyal henchman, who is also the first to attack. He hurls bricks at them, but Yeti shatters the bricks as if they were paper. After that, he sends them flying through the air. Then Leto remembers that he has a partner and throws a rope at Yeti in an attempt to tie him down. His plan works, neutralizing the giant just enough to have a brick break over his head. Lola, ready to say goodbye, manages to light a match but fails to throw it along with the gasoline, thanks to her brother, who embraces her emotionally, reminding her that the danger has passed. Well, not exactly, because there is still a bomb to be deactivated, which was about to be done with a code sent by his superiors. Nonetheless, Leto tries to stop him, suspecting that this code will trigger the explosion that the government desires. This sparks a fight between the vigilante, who wants peace for his people, and the soldier, whose only duty is to follow orders. The men exchange kicks and punches, although Leto continues trying to convince him, asserting that the government also intended to keep the bomb within the district so it wouldn't be used by Taha. His pleas are ignored, and Leto ultimately threatens him on the edge of the rooftop to come to his senses. The officer quickly regains his composure, accepting Leto's well-placed blows just as he is about to enter the code. Lola then leaps on top of him to halt his actions, and the three of them watch the bomb's countdown. When the timer reaches 0, the bomb does not explode, thanks to the district having been saved. K2 then allows Leto and Damian to escape, and they immediately appear at a government building where they threaten the Minister of State, forcing him to confess his plan to destroy District 13 with the bomb. Damian records the confession and immediately broadcasts it on national television, sparking a political scandal in France. As a result, the government promises to tear down the walls surrounding all dangerous neighborhoods and little by little restore civilization. Before returning to his district, Leto bids farewell to his great partner Damian, kissing him to ensure more frequent visits.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.